all my deployments I go through, and I says, what? I come back, I said, why in the world do I feel this way? I feel slighted, I feel angry, I feel troubled. Why am I thinking? So I started looking at the past, back in World War II. There's a book here, and I love it because it was Mrs. D.C. Allen. It was her book on 28 February 1944. And I found it before New Orleans went under in a bookstore, used bookstore. So if you want to know where I'm at, sometimes I'm in used bookstores, not in the casino down in New Orleans. So it's called the Burma Surgeon. And it's all about, I'm not a doctor, but you know what, there's some lessons learned that the gentleman talked about there that I love. And everybody has to have a book on leadership. And General Bailey, you haven't written your book yet, so I don't know what to do. So. But I always look at past presidents, and we got a book here on Lincoln and what he does on leadership. We have war heroes. Sergeant Major retired Castle, my men and my heroes. I go through some of these books and I'm thinking, you know, if you don't cry, you're not really understanding what's going on in these books. In this book here, it's Stories of Faith Under Fire. It's called Brave Hearts Under Red Skies. I write in my books and I tell my boys, write in your books, I'll buy the books. Don't worry about what the teachers say. Write in your books. And so, and they tell me, Dad, you can't do that. But I always write in my books. And I wrote in here from 13 January 2004. It's a letter to my wife. She never read because I never gave the book to her. A Marine rifleman. Fighting for Life, America's Medical Medicine in World War II. A Corman story. And Major Dick Winters, Band of Brothers. Yeah, these are all awesome books, and I got a whole library of them. But what book can I go through and tell you to keep? All of them. You know, I can't do books on tape or books on Kindle or anything like that because there's no place to write there. I can't do that. I gotta write. I'm a writer. I gotta write in the margin because that's what it means to me. So if I give them to my kids or somebody else, they're gonna say, what was that guy thinking? You know, but it's a personal thing for me when I go back and look at it. And so really, when you look at a book, read it and how it applies to you. Read it for the time. Because the time of your life is that time when you pick up that book and that's the one it means the most to you. And so there's many books out there that will help you out. Somebody else's life story. Because you know that life story, it's amazing how much it matches what your life story is, what they've gone through. So pick up a book, keep it. I like hardback books because you know what? They last for a long time and they really help me. This is part of my show and tell. So I love this when I do. So grab a book, keep it, write in it. Don't worry about it. It's your book.
Thanks, sir.
Well, couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, I did not bring show and tell tonight. So if I can borrow something. Great book. Obviously, it's important to keep a good reading regimen. And all of us say that we're busy and we don't have the time to do so. But it's important to make sure that we are grabbing a book. And I would have to agree with Captain here to make sure that we're reading things that are going to stimulate us, that's going to challenge us in different areas of our life. Whether it's a personal book, whether it's a book about someone's autobiography, whether it's a book about history. But to talk about one that affected my life the most, I would have to say is My American Journey by Colonel Powell's, at the time, General Powell's book on My American Journey. I was a young officer when that book was first published, and I was out on a deployment. So of course you have your stack of books underneath your rack, or you're trying to read anything. At that time, I thought that I knew what I wanted to become as a professional officer. I had a young family that had some additional options or some other options to make in life. But that book was profound to me because I connected with Colin Powell in so many different areas. Not only as a soldier, a statesman, but also as a family man. And at that point in my life is when I really began to look at who I was. This was not just about me being in the military and trying to make rank and trying to make my way in the military as a soldier, as a military member, but understanding how if that was going to be a central part of my life and if that was truly what I was committed to being, then what were the other areas as well? How could I be exceptional in other areas as well? So not just being the soldier, not being the military member, but also being a statesman. Now, I'm not running for office or anything like that at this point, but understanding how to positively impact our community. So that's why I learned from just reading that book and starting to think about when I go back home, when I get back from deployment, how can I be a positive impact on my community as well? I saw someone that was like me. I saw someone come from an urban environment or a background like me, and I began to think about my background, my family, and then the lessons that I learned in life through college and through my experiences in the military. How can I go back to my neighborhood and then to any neighborhood, anywhere where I was, and add back to it? So that's been a part of my makeup since that point. So not just being professionally on point and trying to be the best I could be professionally, but now understanding that once I get orders, once I get assigned somewhere, my wife and I call it being military missionaries. Once we get sent somewhere, there's something that we're supposed to do. There's a community that we're supposed to be involved with and impacting. There's whether it's Boys and Girls Clubs or your local church or Boy Scouts or whatever it is, there's a community right there that needs your help. Then also as a family man. As I said before, I had a young family at the time, been married for nearly 19 years now, and I've got 3 children. So that made me think about how can I do this, how can I play this game at the highest level? I was a young officer at the time, I believe a lieutenant, maybe a captain. And I thought that I knew what I wanted. I thought that I was committed to this, but I was able to see from that biography someone that was truly committed to the highest degree. In that commitment, in that understanding that you're responsible for your community and for your nation and for being a statesman as well, don't forget your family. So that made me think about, again, now once I get back home, not only what am I going to do to impact my community, what am I going to do to be a better family member? And I see a couple of my officers in the audience here, but I talk about what my actual vision or my end state is after having the opportunity to command. Even if I'm on a staff, what my end state is after our 2 years, our 3 years of being together. I hope that by the time you're done, you're a better professional, you're a better Marine, you're a better technician. What my prayer is, and what I'm really shooting for, is by the time we're done our engagement, that you're a better husband or a better wife, you're a better man, you're a better woman, you're a better father, you're a better mother. And that's so by reading the book, by reading My American Journey, that helped me start to develop who I was as a professional, who I was as a member of my community, who I was as a family member. And I began to write out then, is when my command philosophy, if you will, began. But really it became a life philosophy. So whenever anyone ever asked me what, I've got a library, unfortunately, didn't get a chance to bring it, but they asked me, what should you read? I like My American Journey. I like Colin Powell. He inspires me. What I say is, pick someone who inspires you. I would recommend a biography or an autobiography. It's something that I've learned from my grandfather. If you want to be successful, you have to do what successful people do. You have to think how successful people think. You've got to go where successful people have gone. And how do you get those years of experience? You can talk to people, certainly. Getting the opportunity to come to a professional development seminar or a panel like this, absolutely. But take the time also to read about where they come from. And then as you're turning those pages, you realize they're just men and women too. They're men and women with aspirations at one point. They're men and women with dreams and goals, but what did they do to become successful? What was it that drove them to be successful? Who was it that motivated them to be successful? And realize that our lives are not much different. So what is it, who is it that's going to drive you to be what you're dreaming of being? And then write it down and do it.
Thank you. Sure.
So the question is one book, and
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to stick to the same theme and not mention one. So just let me mention a few that because all of our life experiences shape us, and books that you read will shape you as well. And so certainly, I guess I'll start off with what Jim said as well. The Bible is an important book to me, as you can well imagine. But other books that have made a significant impact. Good to Great is an excellent book by Jim Collins. It's certainly one I recommend fully. The world's most powerful leadership principle is Jim Hunter, an author of servant leadership type books. I found that book to be very, very inspiring and challenging to me. I already mentioned the book Better by Tulip Mwande. Covey's books have been challenging. I'm sure everyone here has read 7 Habits. There's one that struck me even more than that one, The Speed of Trust. There's so many valuable principles in that book, Speed of Trust. Lincoln on Leadership, that's a really outstanding one, and one that applies more to the medical field, why hospitals should fly. There's some really fascinating principles in that as well. Let me just mention one more in closing, and that's one that we're reading as an executive steering committee at the hospital right now, called Shackleton's Way. It's a biography, if you will, and Ernest Shackleton is a fascinating fellow that didn't accomplish what he set out to do. He wanted to make it, be the first one to make it, well, actually he was with Scott trying to get to the South Pole, then he wanted to go across Antarctica. He never accomplished his mission. As he was going down south, his ship, the Endurance, got iced in, and the most remarkable thing about his failed mission is what he ended up succeeding in doing. His crew, at all odds, should certainly not have survived, but because of his unique leadership, and particularly in the book it speaks about his optimism, he was able to create that hope and inspiration in his crew such that not a single one of them perished. And it's just a remarkable story when you read about his journey and the way his entire crew survived, and you read about the unique leadership style and principles that he has. So Shackleton's Way, good one to recommend for you.
You know I'm not going to stick with one book. I already have two up here. Let me start off by saying that I offer to you the Leadership Bible by John C. Maxwell. And it's a very interesting way John C. Maxwell, with the Bible and all the verses are saying, but throughout the Bible, he puts examples of leaders who did something or didn't do something. He ties that book to all of the other books that he's written. So if you haven't had a chance to, I've got all of Maxwell. Anything you can think of Maxwell in terms of leadership is on my shelf. And I stumbled into the Leadership Bible probably well after I read 21 Irrefutable Laws, and I started going through this, and this book's really fantastic. The other one I will offer to you is Gates of Fire, Stephen Pressfield. And it's interesting that many of you may have seen the movie 300. When you read the book Gates of Fire, and when you think about all the examples of Kingdom United, one of the scenes when he's digging a hole and asking him why is he digging a hole, it's about his leadership example, and that whole description of Thermopylae and what they were involved in, and they all knew that they were going to fight to the death. When you start thinking about what we all represent, courage and entrepreneurship, it's all in that book Gates of Fire, as Pressfield described it. You can smell the core at you right there with him, and you're swinging, fighting and defending along with him. And all of that in that book also is deceit. They were defeated because someone basically showed the enemy the way how to come behind them, and they were betrayed. So that's a very good book, and I think everyone should at least read that. And if nothing else, if you're not fired up to read that book, then you can come over here and have your pulse checked. The other one that I'll offer to you that I have with me, and it makes it so simple. I think everybody ought to read this book. When you read Message to Garcia, you shouldn't be going back to the boss and saying, what do you want to do? You want to do this? Read this book, and then apply it to your life. And after that, you're in there. If you don't understand it, read it again, come see me. Now, I'm sure you can understand that. Okay, you've already heard what Reason said about Colin Powell. This is another one it worked for me. A lot of people don't know that Colin Powell wasn't an honest student. He describes himself as an average student. He was. But he rose to the highest rank because he worked hard. And he listened. He cared about his people. He's got those 13 rules that Colin Powell rules. But State Department in this book, and he did it in his first book, overall, a little more military. And before I end, I want to share something with you. And when you start talking about reading books, it's about education. And the book that I'm reading now, that I'm writing on, is called Founding Brothers, written by Joseph Ellis. I'm going to tell you, it would be a boring book for you. It wasn't boring for me because I kind of got into the Founding Brothers. And it talks about Washington, Franklin, Jefferson, Hamilton, and Burr. We all know Hamilton and Burr, you know, when they shot, had a little shootout. But it describes what happened prior to this nation becoming the nation as it was coming into its own. Very interesting book, and as you read this book, you see how the decisions they made, they put off things that would impact this nation some 100 years later, the Civil War, when you conscious decisions. I found it very fascinating, just getting in the minds of Franklin, Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton, and Adams. And it's interesting also that it was almost identical to what we are going through now in terms of sequestration. Back then they were arguing about money, but it was about residency and assumption. Who was going to assume the debt of the Revolutionary War? And who, and then where was the capital going to be so they come back to a deal? So the South would pay and be satisfied. So it's a very good book. It's very good lessons in there. But I found this interesting in there. Jefferson said, he said, the best defense is education. Best defense is education. So read and study. And the context of the quote is this: Jefferson believed that education was the key. He founded the University of Virginia. I'm going to close by saying I was traveling with Luther General Peterson about 4 months ago. We were in New Zealand, and he was just taking copious notes. I said, "Sir, you taking all those notes?" He said, "You know, I have books like this filled with quotes and things I hear from people." I said, "Wow, pretty fascinating." And so I said, "You never be caught out, and always write down what you hear from other people and add it to the repertoire." Kind of said before, I copy everything you can. All right, that was my one book.
Thank you, gentlemen, for all your numerous one-book contributions. Thank you. So in the essence of time, gentlemen, what I would ask, I will have one question, but what I'll ask is that I will request that you keep that last response here to 2 minutes, so we can open it up to the floor. So the very last question that I will throw out before we open it to the floor is, could you please share one personal experience as a junior officer that taught you a tough lesson? Sure.
Well, really, when you look at that's a tough question. So the question, or kind of restated, is as a JO, really starts back years ago. Because someone said I couldn't, you can't. I graduated from the bottom of my high school class of 52 kids, I was 51. And the only reason why I was 51, and I soon to become the honor of all that, because the guy who was 52 died. So now it's bottom of my class. People told me I couldn't do it. No, you can't. And continue on. I joined the Navy, and so they said you can't do it. I did it. They said, well, you can't go to college. I ended up going to college, and I was permitted under academic, waivers. But I succeeded because someone said I can't. As commission, I got my commission. Someone said, well, you can't get your commission. You're not smart enough. I applied. I got my commission. Someone says, well, you can't be that person over there because you don't have the qualifications. I applied anyway. I was persistent. So when we look at where we're at, where we're going to, and I'm going to leave you with this because I know I'll give the other folks my extra seconds. Don't take the first no, but restate the question. For me, it was always about, someone told me no, I restated a question, so I got a yes. A yes for me because it was a commitment. Someone always told me no. And so what I do now is I look at enabling. How can I enable those who I have the pleasure of working with? And I always give them opportunities. Restate the question.
Thanks.
Mr. Richard, your second, sir. I believe that good officership begins with having a teachable spirit. Understanding that we don't have all the answers already. The experience I had probably was the most profound in this regard for me, in learning to stop and listen. You know, I'm placed everywhere. You know, wherever you're placed, you're sent there to be a positive influence on someone, to teach someone, but that you're also there to learn from someone and to learn something. I was a lieutenant on the Marine Expeditionary Unit, first lieutenant, and the way the table of organization works on the MU is that the assistant, the S6 Alpha, is a lieutenant or captain, and the S6 is a major. Through the course of our 6-month workups, the S6, the major, could not make it. You know, he was not physically capable of making it through the workups. So I spent about 4 of those 6 months of the workups as a lieutenant, you know, filling bigger shoes. Started gaining confidence in my job. I knew my job as a lieutenant. Started gaining confidence in the job of being this Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations capable, you know, staff officer. I'm briefing the colonel now, and I understand how this is all working. I worked through 4 months of the workup cycle. Actually went through the certification exercise and was certified with that MUSOC as a first lieutenant. I probably shouldn't have been surprised, but I was a little surprised, and my feelings were hurt when they brought in a major right before we went on to deployment. Going underway, in fact, the major checks in. What I did not realize was that for those first couple of months, I had a little bit of an attitude. Probably didn't even go months long. It was probably the first couple of weeks or days before the major put me back in my place. Started smelling myself and believing my own press. You know, hey, I'm a lieutenant. I made it through. I'm on this, you know, this war-fighting MU, and I've done the job, and I've got us through certification. Why can't I do this job? We don't even need you here. I think I may have even said something as crass as, "Hey, sir, all you gotta do is, you know, I'll give you all the answers. I got this covered." Yeah, I think that was probably when he snapped on me. Yeah. At any point, what I learned was not to confuse my confidence or cockiness with competence. I learned not to confuse my initiative with ignorance. I learned not to confuse experience with professionalism. When you shut your mouth and you stop and you listen and you learn and you grow, then you can become better. What it reminded me of is that I may have been a great lieutenant. I may even be ready to be a captain, but I had no idea what it took and what it meant to be a major. Everywhere we go, there's someone we should be learning from and growing from. And so officers, what I believe is that having a teachable spirit will get you there. You walk into the door with your experience and your confidence of who you are, what you know, but prepared to learn so that you can grow and be better, then I think you'll be fine.
Well, what I'm going to say is not something that's nearly that strategic. Mine's more operational, and it was supposed to be an experience that we have.
Yes,
right?
sir.
We learned a lesson from the experience. So, you know, fitness reports are something that are kind of important in the military career, right? Because they don't promote people; they promote whatever is on the fitness report, right? And so this lesson I learned in a hard way, I think I had a fitness report once, and my middle name was Jay, and somehow they put the middle name was Joy. And so when I was doing I think this was a lieutenant, and you're supposed to look over your record, you know, before you go to before the board. So I saw that was wrong, and I thought I was nervous, so I better correct that. So I had to go through all this paperwork to try to get, you know, my name changed from Joy to Jay. And so you know, a few years later, I was a lieutenant commander, and my director of medical services came up with my fitness report. And I read something in it, and I don't know, something wasn't right. And so I know I didn't want to have to go through that paperwork of trying to correct an incorrect fitness report, even though the CO had signed it. So I said, you know, wow, this is not right. Do you think you could get that changed? And he said, sure. And, you know, I got caught up in the whirlwind, and I never thought about it again. And he never came back with a corrected fitness report, never signed anything. And a couple years went by, and so now I'm ready to go before the board for a commander. And so, you know, you get your, back then, the microfiche and start looking, and wow, there's a missing fitness report. And so I thought, okay, what do I do? Well, let me, you know, check with the front office. Maybe they have a copy of it somewhere, just never got it in PERS. No, they didn't have a copy. Okay, what about that DMS? You know, I chased him down. You know, that fitness report that I asked to correct, and he had no recall, and he had no records, and no whatever. And so I said, you know, what do you do with a missing fitness report covering a whole year? Well, in fact, the CO was now no longer there. He was at another command, and so they said, well, we'll write another one. So, okay, so I wrote a fitness report years later, and boy, I didn't know really what to put in it, but put some stuff in it. And thankfully, you know, we have different, in the Navy system and the Marine Corps system, you have I was very ignorant then, you know, you have the, would it be an EP or an MP or a P, and I thought, well, it sounds kind of bold to put EP, so it's gonna be a 1 of 1. I submitted to him with, you know, I thought, I'll put MP, so 1 of 1 MP, and I didn't know what marks to give myself, so I gave myself like 3s, and you know, humble. Thankfully, that CO was a lot smarter, and so he gave me an EP, and he jacked the numbers up, but at any rate, so my illustration is, manage your record, particularly your fitness report, and don't, even though I told you to read the book Speed of Trust, it's an important book to read, but trust but verify, and so follow and manage your record, because unfortunately, that little piece of paper can sometimes be a very significant thing for your career.
My lesson I want to share with you goes back to those days when I was a serious commander at NCRD Paris Island. And, you work your way up the way this works. Back then, and they don't exist today, you have a series commander and assistant series commander in every series. They now, companies in our series, we have about 320 recruits in each one of the series. And so part of the responsibility is that you to interview every recruit twice at the beginning and then end before they graduate. And as a series commander, you know, you're responsible for your team. You really don't want anything going on in your team that creates some problems. And the way you do that is you make sure it's establish an environment where recruits will come up and talk to you and tell you everything. If you're a series commander and you're like a drill instructor, then they're not going to talk to you. They're still in the shock phase. Got a very, very squared away sergeant that was in my 3rd platoon. He was very good, always looked sharp, always squared away. His staff gunner sergeant named Donald Hicks, and the staff sergeant named Campbell, all both became, those two became sergeant majors. They would always win in the final drill, so as I'm going through an interview, I come upon some information that I think something's going on in the platoon. So when I started asking the series chief and a couple other people, I said, don't worry about it. I decided that, no, I am going to worry about it because I think there's something going on. And I later discovered, this gentleman's out, his name is Miramar, he was beating his recruits. He was beating them pretty bad. Beat one that ended up in the hospital. We really didn't know. It said something else. So we're in an investigation. We court-martialed him. Tell you the story to say it's about your integrity. You know, no one can take your integrity away from you. You have to give it away. Don't give it away. So you got to hold the line. When you see something that's not there, just give it a hard call. It's not easy. But I will offer you is that was a lesson I learned as a lieutenant early on, that if you don't hold the line on it, you're end up in a whole lot of trouble yourself as things start to come back. And that process and that system could easily happen. Because what will happen most of the time is that it will say to you, they'll go off to SOI or somewhere else, and then they'll finally say, look, this will happen to me. So we have to get rid of that one person that was just a bad apple. The real lesson is hold firm to what you believe, what you think, and you go from there.
Thank you, sir. Well, panelists, I appreciate it. What we're going to do right now is open up questions for the floor. So let me recover the ROE. Is if you have a question, if you could just stand, state your name and rank and what unit and billet you're currently in, and then direct your question to either all the panelists or one panelist. If you do direct your question to the entire panel, I would ask the panelists, in the essence of time, to try to keep it brief so we can facilitate more questions. So with that said, are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Captain Lisa Lawrence Rojo, Public Affairs Officer for 1st Marine Division. I actually want to pose this question to the entire panel. Reflecting back on your careers, what was the one billet that you held, one position that you held that you found to be the most and why?
Thank you. Gentlemen, whoever would like to field the question first.
I've been going last, so I might as well go last now.
Sir, you're welcome to go first.
Well, I'll go first then.